Welcome to another episode of A Closer Look from the Streets. I'm your host, Leah Cooper. And not only do we have an interesting panel of Bahamians with us today, we have none other than Mr. Donovan Moxey. He's the chairman of Bahamas Powering Light. It's great to have you with us, Mr. Moxey.
It's great to be here. Thank you very much.
Okay. We also have with us Ms. Shantez Dillett-Wilson. We have Heather Cartwright, and we have a reoccurring guest, Mr. C.A. Nuri. It's great having you guys with us.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Good to be here.
All right, so Mr. Moxey, I just want to get into it. I think the bottom line for a lot of Bahamians is my power going to stay on? I know load shedding has been a vexing issue for quite some time, and I want to know what the Bahamian people, what BPL rather, is doing to address that problem and ensure that last summer is not happening this summer.
Yeah, no, and I agree with you. I mean, no Bahamian should go through load shedding like we did last summer, and we're making plans to do our best to make sure that it does not happen again. Last summer of 2019, we went into the summer with around 290 to 300 megawatts of available power, understanding that our peak was around 240 to 250. The unfortunate thing that happened to us last summer is we lost about 3 of our generators within 3 weeks of the start of the summer. And so that put us really on the knife edge in terms of being able to satisfy the load. Additionally, we lost a bank of our rental generators, so they weren't really operating the way they should. And so we went through that very, very vexing problem last year. So what we're doing this year is that we're putting in place about 5 to 6 additional generators, with Station A coming on, with us being able to rehabilitate and actually maintain a lot of the generators that were not working or were available to us last year. We're bringing them back on. So the start of the summer, we should have about 5 to 6 available generators extra. And so hopefully we don't lose all of them. But we think the probability of doing that is probably very, very low.
So are you going to guarantee that we're not going to see any load shedding?
We can't guarantee anything. There's no power company in this world that can ever guarantee 100% uptime. It just doesn't work that way. But what I can tell you is that the people at BPL are working as hard as we possibly can. With Station 8 coming on board, that's really, really good for us. So we're doing everything we can to make sure that load shedding that happened last year does not happen this year.
So you say you can't guarantee that
Right.
these generators won't go down. I guess for me, just because I felt as if we had a little bit of a promise that we wouldn't have
Right.
a load shedding like
Right.
this last summer.
Right.
If something like
Right.
that does happen, what kind of resiliency or redundancy do you guys have to
Yeah.
try and pick up the pieces of something
Exactly.
like that?
Great question. So again, I mean, most utilities operate with 2 to 3 additional generators, and that's what we thought we needed last summer.
Okay.
And so recognizing that even didn't work for us, because many of our generators weren't really maintained properly over the years, and so they failed on us. So that's why we're essentially doubling that.
Okay.
So rather than having 2 to 3, we're going to have 5 to 6 additional generators available. And so we want to make sure we get through the summer. The other thing that we didn't do last year is we didn't go through a proper winter maintenance program. And the reason is because we lost about 100 megawatts of generators during the fire. So all of the generators that you would normally run through maintenance, we couldn't. And so when you talk about running an engine 24/7, 365 consistently, it's very tough to keep that engine going if you didn't maintain it. So this winter, we have a winter maintenance program, and we're working through all of that with all of our generators. So we're doing
And that's like an
everything we
ongoing
can.
thing, like
That's
winter maintenance,
ongoing
like
right
y'all
now.
gonna
Yes,
do
and in
that every
fact,
year so we can keep this in good shape,
Exactly,
so we
exactly,
don't have to
exactly.
always have extra generators.
Yeah, the fire sort of led to a domino effect of a number of different things for us, and so it was just a perfect storm for us. And so where we are right now is we're looking to get back on track as normal utilities operate. So in the wintertime, which is really time of the season where the demand is not that high, we're going through winter maintenance. And in the era of being transparent in BPL, we actually have press releases and statements that go out that talk about our winter maintenance program and what we're doing with that as well. So again, we're trying to be as transparent and as clear as we can to the Bahamian people, because we know electricity is a part of all of our lives.
See, I trust you. You know, you have that trust and faith, and plus you have that doctor term in front of your name. So I believe you. But last summer it was hot. I mean, you don't understand. I was light skinned last summer. And right now, I die because of how much BPL didn't have no electricity on, you know?
Yeah.
And even despite that I trust you, right? I want to know about compensation. If the light turn off, can I get a rebate? Can I get some money back? So can I get some credit? You know, just telling me that to believe you and money and the light to stay on. I can't.
You know what? I hear what you're saying, and that's been a question that a lot of people have asked us.
Giving us money back?
But even no, we won't go that far, right? But even though we are a utility, just like the other utilities that are regulated, one of the things about BPL is that you pay for what you use with utility. And so unlike other utilities where they may be broadcasting to you and maybe a channel doesn't go out or a channel comes in, and I don't want to beat up on Rev and those guys, but with utilities, we bill you for what you use. And so with that, in that respect, we cannot really give rebates on that. We certainly understand the question, but we can't do that.
Okay, and for next summer, or this summer, the calculation of what you're going to use includes the opening of the 2 new developments on the island, right?
Yes, correct. Great question. One of the things that we have to keep cognizant of as BPL is the fact that there are new developments, there's new demand being created all the time. And so there's the point that's coming on stream in April. Bahamar, of course, is building a new water park. And so the point, we believe, is going to absorb about 8 new megawatts of power. And we believe that Bahamar is going to be in the 6 to 10 range as well in terms of megawatt capacity requirements. And so yes, we are planning for that, we are accounting for that. And as part of our strategy as a utility, it's very important that you plan for the future. And so all of those things are being taken into account for us.
So what I want to know is, what can Bahamians do to lower their light bill?
Yeah, that's a great question. In fact, we're looking to start talking with a number of community partners about energy conservation. So there's a number of very simple things that can be done. The first is replacing a lot of your light bulbs in your home with LED light bulbs, which are higher efficiency light bulbs. A lot of us are used to using the 60 watt or 75 watt light bulbs. Well, the same amount of light that you can get from that 60 or 75 watt light bulb, you can get a 15 to 20 watt LED bulb and get the same level of light. The other thing that people can do is look at either putting a timer on their water heater or even thinking about going maybe to a tankless water heater.
Okay.
There are things that you can do with respect to putting insulation in your home. So there's a number of energy conservation steps that people can take. And from our perspective, we're looking to work with the community, various community organizations and various community leaders to talk about energy conservation.
I can attest to the water heater. in turning off our water heater, we've already saved over $100 a month in BPL costs. So that definitely helps a lot.
Yeah. And one of the things that
only
we can
use it when we need it.
Yeah, one of the things we can do to share in the cost reduction is the fuel charge is paid by everyone. And if we're running an additional generator that maybe has a 20 or 25 watt a megawatt capacity, but we're running it to make up an additional, say, 10 megawatts, then if you now can conserve energy where you don't run that generator, then that fuel charge goes down for everybody. So when you talk about energy conservation, everybody's bills get impacted by that. So that's something that we should all think about as a community.
But Dr. Moxey, I hear you again. I hear you. But I can need some help.
Okay.
I can need some help, and just tell me to save energy ain't gonna be that. So can you give me like some information, like BPL provide like a detailed information on how I can save some energy, not just leave it up to me.
Right.
You know, so I'm a little concerned and uneasy about that. Say no, turn off your jet. You know, that's not going well.
No, that's a great question. In fact, our website, we have a brand new website, and so a part of that website is going to include energy conservation tips. And we've also been having conversations with the Bahamas Chamber of Commerce and Employees Confederation about working with their particular committee as it deals with energy conservation to talk about, you know, how can we as an entire community teach each other how to conserve energy. Also, we know a lot of their members in the Bahamas Chamber, they do provide energy conservation tools, services, products. So I'm sure coming into the summer, you'll be hearing from those kinds of organizations as well about summer preparation for energy conservation.
All right, so now that we're on the topic of, you know, saving money,
Right.
the rate reduction bond bill.
Great.
Well, the rate reduction bond. A lot of people had a lot of things to say about
Right.
it. A lot of people are outraged.
Right.
Could you, for those that don't know about it, can you explain exactly what it is and how it's going to will help the Bahamian people.
Great, excellent. Now we've heard the term rate reduction bond put out there, and rate reduction bonds are not uncommon. So you have the United States, Canada, a lot of major countries have done rate reduction bonds for their utilities. Our rate reduction bond, as you call it, is a little bit different. We've structured a little bit differently, and so as a result of that, we call it a National Utility Investment Bond, or what you would see on your bill is the National Utility Investment Charge. Now the question is, why are we doing this? The reality of it is that BPL's financial position is not good at all. We owe about $321 million in debt, and this debt has been carried forward now for the last 10 plus years. And so we found ourselves in a position where we need to invest in our infrastructure. We don't have the money to do it. We have a lot of debt, so what's the best way to actually take care of that debt is to go ahead and put out a bond. And what that bond does for us is it allows us to pay off the debt that we have, and it gives us a couple $100 million to invest in our infrastructure, maintaining our engines, and doing all of those things to create a much more efficient generation facility. And so as Bahamians, all of us, not only in New Providence, but in the entire country, need to share in that cost. One of the reasons why we're in the situation financially that we are in is back in 2003, there was a significant adjustment in the rates that Bahamians pay. So the average rate was around 16.5 cents a kilowatt hour. That rate was reduced all the way down to today's rate, which is around 12.5 cents. So BPL lost a lot of revenues over the years that put it in the financial position that we're in.
It sounds like you're blaming me though. I didn't do anything. I didn't do anything, and this term bond,
Right.
you know more than it. Just sounds like you gotta be paying some money.
Yeah, I was going to say, when you use the term bond, I think things like a government bond, a municipal bond, where I'm getting a return after a delayed period on what I've invested.
Right.
This is going to run, 20 to 25 years?
Yes.
What returns are we getting
I
on
don't
it?
see it.
Great
If
question.
not,
And,
why this instrument versus
yes,
other things?
that's exactly right.
And
I hear you completely.
in addition to that,
Go ahead.
what is BPL going to do to clean up, maybe deficiencies in collections?
Yes.
Or, how the business is
Yes.
run, so to
Yes.
speak?
All great questions. So let's talk about bond versus loan. The challenge is that the current loans that BPL has, they're all government-backed loans, government-guaranteed loans, which is not good for anybody, especially when you look at us trying to be able to have our sovereign rating as high as it possibly can. BPL also is not in a financial position to go out and get another loan. So when we looked at all of the financial instruments that were available to us, this bond made a lot of sense for BPL because a lot of utilities are doing similar types of structured bonds. When you look at possible returns, this bond is also going to be made available to the local market as well. And now we don't know what the interest rates are going to be. We're working hard with the rating agencies. We're technically in a quiet period, so there's not a whole lot I can say about that. But what I will tell you is that based on the financial advisors we hire, the analysis that was done at BPL, this is the best way to go to give us the lowest possible cost to refinancing our debt. You talked about what we're going to do efficiency-wise. So where we are right now is, as a board, we created a new strategic plan. So we're looking at bettering our customer service, increasing efficiencies, building in new systems, making sure we bring in new energy and new engines. The Shell North America deal is a huge part of our restructuring of the organization, where we're entering into a power purchase agreement with Shell North America, where we will be able to buy generation from them at a set rate. That's not in principle going to change, except for certain things that take into account cost of living adjustments and things of that nature over the next 20 years. So what it does for BPL is we now understand what we're going to pay for generation at a base load level, and that price is set. So now we can go ahead and better run the organization knowing what the generation costs are, which traditionally in organizations, that's the biggest cost that you can have when it comes to being a utility for electricity.
That actually brings another question that I had that's kind of similar to what Heather said, is that, the bottom line for this bond is that this is more expensive for the everyday consumer, and the cost of living is already high in the Bahamas. So I guess what I want to know is that since this is obviously necessary, what else is being done, I guess, to lower the other things that contribute to the cost of our electricity,
Yes.
like the rate?
That's great. Great question. Great question. So the rate of electricity in the Bahamas is actually governed by ERCA. So there's really very little we can do to make an adjustment in that rate without going to ERCA. So in terms of reducing the cost, one of the things that we looked at as a board is how do we minimize the impact of that national investment utility charge to our customers? And the way we looked at doing that is through the use of more efficient generation. So right now, with the new plant that came in Station A, with the plant that's coming on stream with Station D, we have engines that are actually 50 to 60% more efficient than the engines that we run now. So what does that mean for the consumer? The largest components of anybody's bill rather is that fuel charge. When you look at now using engines that are more efficient, that fuel charge is going to go down. And it's going to go down to the point where the charge that you get from the rate reduction bond is going to be offset by the fuel charge. So we thought about strategically, how do we minimize the impact, and more efficient generation is the way to go. Coupled with that, when LNG comes on as the fuel source, LNG being the least expensive fuel source from a carbon-based footprint that you can utilize, that's further going to reduce the cost of that fuel surcharge and the overall cost of energy to Bahamians. So all of these things we've been thinking about, and our strategic plan is set and laid out over the next 20 to 25 years.
All right, so I know a lot of Bahamians also want to know about Abaco.
Yes.
You know, it was decimated in early September last year because of Hurricane Dorian. Is there any updates? How's your progress?
Yes, I can tell you we've been making pretty good progress in Abaco. In fact, the day when the all clear was given, myself, the CEO, and an assessment team from BPL was actually on the ground in Abaco. And so we made sure that our employees were safe, we got them and their families out, and we did the assessment in Abaco. And what we found was that the major damage was done in Marsh Harbor, but not too much damage in the south. So by September 27th, we had the south powered back up again, and that's from Wilson City down to Sandy Point. Then we focused on bringing the north, and that's Cooperstown, Crown Haven area back on board as well. And they were back powered up by around mid to late November. And then given the progress that we've been making in Abaco, we're looking to have the entire island electrified by the end of March. And so even though we haven't been pushing out a lot of information on social media or really talking about all the progress that we've been making in Abaco, we've been making significant progress. And so what people will see in the next days and weeks to come is they'll see reports on where Abaco is. And so from our standpoint, we've gotten great help from our partners at Carolette, and that's the Caribbean organization where the utilities all come together and help each other. So we've had folks from all over the Caribbean, including Haiti, including Jamaica, Trinidad, that have come in and actually assisted us with that as well. So we're very happy with our progress in Abaco.
I see Hopetown, forgive me, I see Hopetown has some kind of underground cable sponsorship. You know, is that something that BPL plans to do
and
in the
future?
future?
And if I could just expand that a little bit, you know, with climate change, we can expect these kinds of big storms to be a lot more frequent and more powerful. So I guess as you rebuild Abaco's infrastructure, what are you doing to ensure that it can hold up to
Especially Marsh Harbor.
Great question.
Especially Marsh Harbor.
Definitely, great question. Resiliency is very, very important for us, and that's the ability to bounce back quickly from storms. So we've looked at that a number of ways. One of the things that's also happening in Abaco is we're building microgrids for critical infrastructure. So we're using solar, we're using battery technology, coupled with the use of traditional generation. So all the major government buildings right now, the hospitals, the government clinics, and also to government administrative buildings, we're actually putting those on microgrids. When you look at the ability to put in underground cabling, we're looking at that as well. But you've got to look at priority-wise, how do you now get an island back? So the very first thing you want to do is bring the electricity back. We've been having conversations with a number of residents on a number of islands and talking about putting it underground, which we're not opposed to, but you have to balance the cost with what you're doing there as well. And so we're looking at all of those both in the short and the long term as well for resiliency.
And is this something that, like, as you, I guess, beta test it in Abaco, you'll be thinking of rolling out in other islands?
Yes. In fact, many of you have heard about what we're doing in Ragged Island. So Ragged Island is really our laboratory for microgrids, for solar microgrids. And we're doing similar things in Abaco as well. So Ragged Island will be on stream hopefully before the end of February. We've had some delays due to the fact that one of our major subcontractors was actually out of Grand Bahama. They were affected by Dorian, but now everything is coming on track. And we're getting power injected into the grid from the solar panels, but we're putting in the battery and the other technologies now as well to have a full microgrid. We've also sent out RFPs for the islands of Inagua, Eleuthera, and Andros to put solar microgrids there. And as I mentioned earlier, in Grand Bahama, we're putting solar microgrids on all of the government buildings as well. Because we recognize as BPL, we have to cover the entire Bahamas with electricity. And so we know you can't do it the traditional ways. So solar-based microgrids are going to play a significant role in that. But you have to balance cost with being able to deliver power from an efficiently standpoint, if you will, as well.
When it comes to the solar, will there be any future plans for perhaps persons who can give back to the grid, receiving rebates or anything from it, from BPL?
And
Great question. In
legality of
fact,
coming off the grid.
Yes,
Actually,
yes.
yes. In fact, we have an SSRG program now. It's called Small Scale Renewable Generation Program. And so far, about 200 of our customers have taken advantage of that program. Now, what is that program? That program allows any home or business owner to build up to 100 kilowatts of power in their particular home. They then push that power to the grid. We then do a net metering, net billing arrangement with that homeowner. And so we credit them back for the power that they push to the grid. So technically, you can literally have a bill that could be zero or negative based on the amount of power that you push back to the grid. So the SSRG program is there now. One of the challenges is a lot of customers have not taken advantage of it because of the cost. The average home would take about a 7 to 10 kilowatt hour system. And you can do your survey among the folks who provide that power, the local vendors, that kind of setup rather. And you're looking at about a $40,000 to $50,000 investment. And so for a lot of people, that's a significant investment. But that program is there, and we encourage individuals who can do that to go ahead and take advantage of that program.
Well, I'm sure we can go on about this topic for hours. I just want to thank each and every one of you for sitting down with me and having this conversation. You, Dr. Moxey, and our lovely panel of Bahamians. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Closer Look from the Streets. I'm Leah Cooper. See you next time.